There is something happening when men and women in Des Moines and Davenport, in Lebanon and Concord, come out in the snows of January to wait in lines that stretch block after block because they believe in what this country can be. There is something happening. There's something happening when Americans who are young in age and in spirit, who've never participated in politics before, turn out in numbers we have never seen because they know in their hearts that this time must be different. There's something happening when people vote not just for party that they belong to, but the votes, the hopes that they hold in common. That whether we are rich or poor, black or white, Latino or Asian, whether we hail from Iowa or New Hampshire, Nevada or South Carolina, we are ready to take this country in a fundamentally new direction. That's what's happening in America right now. Change is what's happening in America.
Hello. I want to talk about Barack Obama's 2008 concession speech in New Hampshire. That speech is perhaps one of the most important speeches of his political career. It helped solidify a murky message for his campaign and galvanized it around this cult following that presented a young, unknown senator as challenging the establishment. I think that you'll find it is also one of the most important oral rhetorics of our time. And that alone means it should be studied. First, I want to say I'm not interested in the politics here. I don't want to talk about either of his presidential terms. I don't want to say whether any of his policies failed or succeeded. I am interested in the persuasiveness of the message. This is about persuasion, not policy. We have to talk about who Barack Obama was. Not who he is now, but who was he in 2008? He was no stranger, quite the opposite in fact, to the art of forensic rhetorical genre. He majored in political science at Columbia. He went on to get his doctorate at Harvard Law School. He spent quite a bit of time as a church-based community organizer in Chicago. And then he went on to teach at the University of Chicago for 12 years, law school. But in 2008, he was just another face in the Democratic national primaries. The other contenders were all old-school Washington players or people who had been in their respective posts for some time. We're talking about Hillary Clinton, John Edwards, Joe Biden, Bill Richardson, Chris Dodd. They had a reputation. Who was this guy? So here we have it. His most pressing competition is Hillary Clinton, a name everybody knows. So how do you set yourself up for success when you're the guy who has no experience in Washington? When you're the different one? The art of turning difference into an asset is at the heart of this particular speech. Going into New Hampshire, Obama was the favorite to win. He had just run a successful campaign in Iowa, and now coming into New Hampshire, the momentum was behind him. But he lost. Clinton won, 36-39. It's not exactly a crushing blow, but careers have been ended by less. Losing momentum was key. So the challenge becomes, how do you write a concession speech that solidifies your message, that puts your momentum back on track? I'd like to analyze that now. So here we have it, the full transcript of the January 8th, 2008 concession speech. If you really look at it, you will see that the structure of this thing is important. It's roughly divided into 3 sections. I will call this structure the myth-making of the speech. I use the words myth-making not to infer that he's lying to us, but merely to imply that he's invoking a new way of thinking about the election. He talks about something happening. In fact, he uses the phrase no less than 7 times in the whole speech. The first 6 are here. This kind of repetition is called anaphora. What we have is the repetition of the beginnings of clauses or phrases. These tend to create a sense of emphasis, urgency, and pathos. You're supposed to be feeling something when you hear this. This concept, there's something happening, is starting to create, in this section of the speech, a sense of tension. Something is happening. What's happening? Right before the panic, he gives you the answer. Change is happening. Is this change a good thing? Who's changing what? The next phrase you'll see repeated is actually the answer to that question. The new majority. This concept is repeated 4 times. Who is this new majority? Well, we are, of course. It's important to mention here that Obama uses the words we, us, and our no less than 70 times in the course of this speech. You, your, and I occur only 12 times. Actually, the word I only appears 3 times. Twice, if you take out the part where he's congratulating Senator Clinton. Wait, stop. Isn't this a campaign speech? Aren't we supposed to hear about what this guy's going to do if he wins? What's this we he's talking about? Who's included? Instead of telling us what it is he plans to do, Obama spends the rest of this myth-making section telling us who we are. We're all included. Watch for the pairs. I don't want to belabor this point too much, but remember, look for these pairs. Black or white, rich or poor, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. Take a look at a map for that last one and you'll see a crisscrossing of the country. We are doctors and patients, workers and businesses, Democrats, Republicans, independents, farmers, scientists. We're everyone. Who are they? Well, when the word is used at all, it's in reference to cynics, and oddly enough, drug and insurance companies. But we'll come back to that thought again when we're talking about style. When I was in high school, I had a teacher who told me that you can't really understand what a piece of writing is about until they get to the but. I always thought this was funny. I thought this was just sort of a comical thing that she said to remind us that there were transitions in paragraphs. But looking at Obama's speech, you really do have to wait for the but.
All of the candidates in this race share these goals. All of the candidates in this race have good ideas. And all are patriots who serve this country honorably. But the reason our campaign has always been different, the reason we began this improbable journey almost a year ago, is because it's not just about what I will do as president. It is also about what you, the people who love this country, the citizens of the United States of America, can do to change it. That's what this election is all about.
Did you catch it? Did you catch the but? But the reason our campaign has always been different, the reason we began this improbable journey almost a year ago, is because it's not just about what I can do as president, it's also about what you, the people who love this country, the citizens of the United States of America, can do to change it. That's what this election is all about. If you look at this, really look at this, there's an our, there's a we, there's a you, and one of the 2 mysterious I's. Pretty important. Now, this is the turning point for him in this structure. This is the moment where it stops being about the beginning of the myth and it starts to be about the actualization of the myth that he's created. This isn't about me, it's about you and us. It's about all of us. What are we going to do? We're going to fulfill destiny. Analyzing the style of a piece of rhetoric can be tricky. When you're talking about the style of a piece of rhetoric, you're not talking about what they say, but how they say it. And pulling those pieces apart from the structure of the piece itself is even more complicated. A part of the style that's represented in Obama's speech is literally how he's standing, how he's talking, the gesture he's making with his hands, the fact that he looks left and right, and you know that you're all included. But the part of style that I most want to talk about is not this stuff. If you want to talk about style, you have to talk about the choice of words. And the choice of words in the second half of Barack Obama's 2008 concession speech in New Hampshire is no less than brilliance. Listen. I want to start by mentioning this piece right here, the chorus of cynics. Earlier I talked about the concept of they and we and us. I mentioned that the they return only to be referred to as cynics. The specific cynic in question was actually Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton who said, "We should be weary of offering a nation false hope." This is a direct poke at her. After that direct poke at the current world, we're pretty much transported through history. Scrolling down just a little bit, we see that when we face impossible odds, when we're told that we can't try, generations of Americans were getting more and more adamant, and now finally, the trip through history brings us here. It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed a trail towards freedom through the darkest of night. It was sung by immigrants as they struck out from distant shores. It was the call of workers who organized, women who reached for the ballot, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, and a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed a way to the promised land. Did you notice that? Yes, we can, is a creed written. It is whispered. It is sung. It is the call. By the time he gets to the part where you get to participate, it's grown louder and louder. Each of these verbs have gotten louder and louder. This phrase, "yes, we can," is written into our founding documents. Our founding documents declaring a destiny. Founding documents declaring destiny is referencing the DNA of our nation. This is where we come from. This is who we are as a people. This section ties nicely to this concept of myth making that I suggested in the structure section here. Who we are people who declare our own destiny. Who we are people who blaze a trail towards freedom. Now, what they're referencing there is obviously the Underground Railroads. Who we are immigrants striking from distant shores and pioneers pushing westward. We're people who write our own destiny, free ourselves, and then of course go wherever we want and are up to any challenge. Well, that's who we are. And Hillary, she's a cynic. Hillary's not one of us. Obama's one of us. I think this is probably why his rhetoric combated her so nicely. Setting up this structure means that really she's one of them. She's a cynic, and she's a part of the establishment in Washington. And so frankly, her own historic campaign doesn't matter as much. But congratulations on the New Hampshire win. The next sentence invokes Martin Luther King, a king who took us to the mountaintops and pointed the way towards the promised land. Yes, we can to justice and equality. This reference to Martin Luther King isn't the first. Oh, sure, it's the first time he said the word Martin Luther King. But listen again to how he speaks. Listen again to the intonation, to the cadence. You've been thinking of Martin Luther King for a long time now.
It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed a trail towards freedom through the darkest of nights. Yes, we can. It was sung by immigrants as they struck out from distant shores and pioneers who pushed westward against an unforgiving wilderness. Yes, we can. It was the call of workers who organized, women who reached for the ballot, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, and a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed the way to the promised land. Yes, we can to justice and equality.
I don't have all the answers, but what do you think it means to baby boomers, Gen Xers, and even the next generation after that we're finally becoming eligible to vote, to hear this sound of history, this Martin Luther King cadence, paired with words that made it sound like this was inevitable? I have to think it's probably one of the most powerful pieces of this whole speech. Sounding like, invoking history, and then saying, we're a part of the next great thing to happen to America.
It was a creed.
What do you think it means if you're in the middle of a crowd and everybody is shouting that? I have a theory. My theory goes like this. Earlier in this speech, Obama references a chorus of cynics. How do you overcome a chorus of cynics? With a chorus of believers. Influence occurs through the management of meaning. According to Plato, rhetoric is the art of winning the soul by discourse. Aristotle says it's the faculty of discovering in any particular case all of the available means of persuasion. Fundamentally a matter of audience psychology. It is a matter not simply of organizing the information conveyed by a discourse, but of organizing the audience's experience of that information. As Burke puts it, psychologically effective form involves an arousing and fulfillment of desires. That chorus becomes a part of the rhetoric. That chorus is in fact perhaps the most compelling part of this rhetoric. Sure, we've gone through the structure of this thing, and we've said that Obama is about the business of making a myth, and that the fulfillment of that myth is this yes we can piece of the pie. It's the chorus, however. It's the crowd around him that sells his case. He almost doesn't need to say a thing more. He just leaves the pause for the crowd to talk. And the rest. Did you know that Barack Obama had a music video?
The destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed a trail toward freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
It was sung
by immigrants as they struck out to the shore, pioneers who pushed westward.
This video technically takes the speech a bit out of order, but we're not going to split hairs. This is the cultural implication of rhetoric when it works.
we stand for justice and equality.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I hope someday that I can do something that would make will.i.am want to make a video about me. It's either that or make the Westboro Church picket my funeral. Of course, Obama went on to win that primary and the election after that. And when history looks at those elections now, they talk about the use of technology. They talk about how Obama was able to master Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and every other form of media at his disposal. It's hard to argue with that. It's true. He did. But I will add one more piece that we don't talk about quite as often. I would have to say that one of the defining moments in Obama's political career would be the "Yes, we can" speech from New Hampshire in 2008. Something a little older than iPhones and iPads helped to win that election. Something that Aristotle himself had an opportunity to weigh in on. Good old-fashioned rhetoric.